if I had to guess, I would say killing Navalny during the Munich Security Conference in the middle of a debate over $60 billion in Ukraine funding. Maybe the Russians are dumb. I didn't get that vibe at all. I don't see it, but maybe they killed him. I mean, they certainly put him in prison, which I'm against.
I mean, the United States could also be involved.
I don't think we kill people in other countries to affect election outcomes. Oh, wait, no, we do it a lot.
Today, Lex Friedman released a 3-hour-long interview that he had conducted with Tucker Carlson, in which the former Fox News host implied that Western powers killed Alexei Navalny to push for more Ukraine aid. Now, to be fair, you just saw the video for yourselves. Lex Friedman seemed to float the idea that that could be possible, and Tucker Carlson seemed to agree that that could be a possibility. Before I get to more on this, Cenk, what are your thoughts?
We might have millions of people watching this show, but you can be the difference maker, because we just need 1% of our audience to be paid members, and then this show can be around forever. So you can make that difference. Click join now. Okay, so first off, US involved. I haven't heard that conspiracy theory before. It makes no sense to me. How the hell did we get into an incredibly isolated Russian prison in the Arctic? What? No, that's just, I don't, look, right-wingers, you actually could easily win elections and take over the country if you just stop doing two things: being needlessly hateful and believing every single conspiracy theory. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, anybody could say anything. Oh, I think Kermit the Frog actually killed Navalny on orders from Biden, who's actually Obama. And conservatives would be like, of course, that's exactly right, right? So, you know who might have wanted to kill Navalny? The guy that Navalny was rebelling against, Putin. And whether he did it by dropping a piano on him or whatever he usually does, or the brother had health problems because they stuck him in an Arctic prison, right? Either way, Putin killed him. And why? Because he dared to say something against Putin's government. And that should be, if you're a conservative, that should animate you so much against Putin. Here's a guy, you want to talk about freedom of speech and cancel culture? How about when you cancel your political opponents by murdering them? How about you, when somebody says something that is freedom of speech, you put them in a prison where they die? So conservatives should despise Putin. Instead, because Tucker Carlson and Trump like him, they're making weirdo conspiracy theories about how we might have killed Putin instead of killed Navalny instead of Putin. That's insanity.
So yesterday, Tucker made a kind of similar suggestion when he responded to news that Ukrainian intelligence had in fact determined that Navalny died of natural causes. So I'll get to the statement from Ukrainian intel in just a moment, but here's what Tucker Carlson had posted on X. So a CIA-backed Ukrainian intel official is now telling us that actually Navalny died of natural causes. You've got to wonder what's going on here. It's pretty obvious.
What's obvious?
I don't know, but what I do know is that Navalny was imprisoned since early 2021. He was sentenced to 19 years for extremism in a high security prison. I have no doubt that he wasn't treated well in that prison. And the statement coming from Ukraine is as follows. This is from Ukraine's head of defense intelligence, and he said, "I may disappoint you, but we know he died from a blood clot. It's more or less confirmed. This is not taken from the internet." So look, if you are living in terrible conditions and you're being tortured in a prison, yeah, you might end up having some sort of ailment that ultimately ends up killing you. But the idea that the West killed Navalny as he was imprisoned in a high security Russian prison is ridiculous. And that's the other thing, I feel like anytime I make a declaration on this show, I have to provide my work. I have to provide the evidence for why I think that, what's backing up the claim. But what's amazing to me is that when it comes to people like Tucker Carlson, they just float something like that with no evidence to reinforce it or back it up. And people are like, oh yeah, that's probably what happened. Okay, I mean, can I do that then? Can I just make declarations on the show and everyone believes me?
No, ironically, the extremes can make any declaration they want. And I don't mean just extreme right and sometimes extreme left. I also mean the extreme corporatists, the establishment guys who just say the outrageous things like, killing paid family leave is a moderate position. Outrageous, right? And they never have to provide any evidence, any polling, any numbers, any facts. Their robot army comes in. Yes, that's obvious. The US killed Navalny. That's the right-wing lunatics, etc. Right? But if you're a reasonable person, all of the extremes close in on you and go, "Where's your evidence for being right? Huh? And then we provide like dozens of data and facts and stats. And they're like, yeah, on the other hand, maybe it's Kermit the Frog. All right, what am I gonna do? Okay, no, look guys, the idea that America killed Navalny is a lunatic idea. How the hell did we get in the goddamn Arctic prison? It's a penal colony. It's ridiculous. Okay, all right, whatever. And right-wingers, why are you all of a sudden giant fans of Russia? Where the hell did that come from? Why do you love Russia so much? I don't hate Russia. Whatever, I mean, I hate Putin. He's imperialist and he causes wars. But I don't hate Russia. But why do you love Russia all of a sudden? Why are you more loyal to Russia than America? It's so goddamn weird.
So Tucker Carlson also shared some of his insights in regard to the interview that he had with Vladimir Putin. You know, the same interview that Putin claimed was a softball interview that he was surprised by. He was expecting some hard-hitting questions from a very sharp Tucker Carlson, and that's not what he got. And so here is Tucker Carlson's reflection of that interview.
My lawyers before I left, and these are people who work for a big law firm. This is not Bob's law firm. This is one of the biggest law firms in the world. Said, you're gonna get arrested if you do this by the US government on sanctions violations. They put a lot of people on this question, checked a lot of precedent, and they sent me a 10-page memo on it, and their sincere conclusion was, do not do this. And of course, it made me mad, so I was lecturing them on the phone, and I had another call with the head lawyer, and he said, well, look, a lot will depend on the questions that you ask Putin. Mm-hmm. If you're seen as too nice to him, you could get arrested when you come back.
Well, it was a softball interview, and in fact, Tucker Carlson allowed Vladimir Putin to just filibuster. And by the way, Tucker Carlson himself, in the context of this Lex Fridman interview, said he was annoyed with Vladimir Putin filibustering and giving him a history lesson for the first hour of that interview. He himself said it while speaking to Lex Fridman. So after that softball interview, what happened? Has Tucker Carlson been arrested yet?
Yeah, no. So look, guys, first of all, he's saying his own lawyers said that he could be arrested. That's not a news story. What is that? That's you just making stuff up. I'm not saying that the lawyers didn't say it, although with Tucker Carlson, anything is possible. He makes up 90% of what he says. But it's not like Biden's lawyers or the Justice Department told him he could be arrested. He's having a conversation with his own lawyers. And they're having a theoretical conversation. But look, if you benefit economically from Russia while there are sanctions, there could be legal consequences. Like, for example, Dick Cheney should have been arrested when Halliburton made a deal with Iran when there were sanctions back in the day, right? Now, in this case, though, the kind of questions that you ask is totally irrelevant to the sanctions. So I don't know where the hell they came up with that, but he makes it sound like the Justice Department and the deep state were like, if you don't ask the kind of questions we want, we're gonna arrest you. Except none of that is true. It's his own lawyers. That's the thing about softball questions is a standard that is completely fictional, made up, has nothing to do with sanctions. But I guarantee you his followers will believe it 100% and believe that it was a deep state, even though, as Anna said, he's not arrested.
Guys, there was a time in America where the State Department the Pentagon would orchestrate and carry out coups in, Latin American countries, for instance, or in Iran. Like, there was a time when the government engaged in all sorts of unsavory schemes across the globe. That's definitely true, okay? That's not the government we have today. How does anyone look at honestly, I don't think the current federal government is even competent enough to carry out a coup. I mean, they tried multiple times in Venezuela and failed. And the way, some of the MAGA Republicans, quite honestly, talk about the federal government makes me think, oh my God, they're asleep at the wheel. They don't understand just how incompetent the federal government is. They can't get anything straight. They can't get anything straight. And you guys think that they're wiretapping you and they're scheming and they're planning on throwing Tucker Carlson in prison for talking to Vladimir Putin? Really?
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, look, man, I interviewed the CIA agent a long time ago, about now nearly 10 years ago. It was a really amazing interview. She told me about honeypot schemes and stuff and how they trick their targets into thinking that they're gonna get a sexual relationship. Like, it was an amazing, very candid interview. And she's like, look, this whole thing, and that deep state stuff on the right wing hadn't started yet. She's like, the number one problem with the CIA is they've become bureaucrats, and half of them sleep under their desk and during lunch. Half of them is an exaggeration, but she said she literally saw that at the CIA. They're just mid-level bureaucrats. You guys think that they're like dun 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 dun, and they're doing all this crazy stuff. They're barely doing anything. So all this stuff used to exist and was aimed 98% against the left wing, right? Now the right wing thinks when it doesn't exist anymore and there's regular law enforcement against the right wing, they're like, oh, how dare law enforcement also apply to us? And so they're outraged. I'm so sick of their conspiracy theories. They take things that were legitimate and they pervert them. And then they leave totally legitimate critique of Biden, the Democrats, the American government, and don't touch it. So for example, the problem isn't the American government going after Tucker Carlson, the problem is the American government going after Edward Snowden and Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning. But did Tucker Carlson talk about that?
Yes, he did actually, believe it or not. Specifically Edward Snowden. Which
but you know Snowden's in Russia. Did he try to see him?
Yes, okay, so he's about to talk about that in the next clip. Let's watch.
That I was being surveilled by the US government, intensely surveilled by the US government. And this came out, they admitted it, the NSA admitted it a couple of years ago that they were up in my Signal account. And then they leaked it to the New York Times. They did that again before I left. And I know that because 2 New York Times reporters, one of whom I actually like a lot, said, oh, you're going, and called other people, oh, he's going to interview Putin. I hadn't told anybody that, like anybody, like my wife, 2 producers, that's it. So they got that from the government. Then I'm over there, and of course I want to see Snowden. And he just said, respectfully, I'd rather not anyone know that we met. Great. The only reason I'm telling you this is because, and I didn't tell anybody, and I didn't text it to anybody, okay, except him. Semaphore runs this piece saying, reporting information they got from the US intel agencies, leaking against me using my money in my name in a supposedly free country. They run this piece saying I'd met with Snowden, like it was a crime or something.
So in the interview, he makes it pretty clear that he feels that the way Snowden was treated was unfair. He seems supportive of Snowden, and he met with Snowden while he was in Russia. And he's alleging that he specifically avoided telling a soul that he was going to meet with Snowden, and then somehow Semaphore found out about it and reported on it. Yeah. He's alleging that the intelligence community has been monitoring him and leaked that information to Semaphore. Obviously, we have no evidence, and he's shown no evidence to back that up. But nonetheless, that's what he's saying.
Yeah, so guys, look, number one, Tucker Carlson has no credibility. None, right? He makes up insane conspiracy theories. When he was on Fox News, he did that crazy documentary about if you suntan your testicles, that it'll make you smarter, or whatever the hell insanity it was.
That's true, right? Cenk, but hold on, I gotta jump in. I do think that it is plausible that the intelligence community is spying on Tucker Carlson.
No, I know, so let me finish the sentence.
Okay.
So is it plausible that Snowden is being monitored by US intelligence? Of course it is, right? And they have a huge target on his back. So they might have intercepted him because they're surveilling Snowden, not Tucker Carlson. And so, but when he talks about how he's like this big enemy of the state, etc., he has no credibility. So it could be true, it could be that he's 100% making it up, as he does half the time. But the most important part is, so now big defender of Edward Snowden. So were you all over Trump when he didn't get Snowden back? Because Trump, when he was president, could have pardoned Snowden instantly.
And Julian Assange. But he wanted to extradite Julian Assange back to the United States to prosecute him.
That's right. And Obama, for all of his huge problems in this area, and he's got massive problems, but at least at the end, he let Manning go, right? So he should have let Snowden go, etc. Now, Trump not held accountable for any of that. Meanwhile, Trump pardoned tons of white collar criminals who were his buddies. You committed some sort of fraud, Trump was gonna pardon you, right? But oh golly gee, couldn't get to Snowden and Assange. And is the right wing tearing his face off over that? No, because if Trump does it, then they're dogs to Trump. Do you have any principles or no? So don't talk to me about Edward Snowden if you never said anything. Look at us. We said it against Obama. We said it against Trump. We're saying it against Biden. That's called honesty. That's called principles. I never see it from right-wing hosts. When it's Trump, they're like, oh yeah, oh Snowden sucks. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Don't question Trump. Don't question Trump. When it's Biden, okay, I can't believe what he's doing to Snowden. Get the F out of here. You guys never mean a goddamn thing.